So, um, I want you to imagine for a second that you are sitting in one of those perfectly sterile, like overly air-conditioned doctor's offices.
Oh, yeah, freezing cold.
Right. You're wearing one of those paper-thin gowns that barely covers anything, and a doctor walks in to hand you this terrifying, completely life-altering medical diagnosis.
Just the worst nightmare scenario.
Exactly. And in that exact second, your entire identity just shifts. You do what pretty much any of us would do in that situation. You place unquestioning absolute trust in the experts in the white coats.
Well, yeah, because you have to, right? Your life literally depends on it.
I mean, you follow their instructions to the letter, but then, say, weeks into your treatment, while your body is just actively shutting down, you realize something is fundamentally wrong.
Like beyond the normal side effect.
Right. You realize the very treatment they are giving you is actually making things worse.
Man, it is a scenario that just, it strips away every single one of our usual defenses.
Huh.
Because when you become a patient, especially with a really severe illness, you just lose your normal agency.
It's totally powerless.
Exactly. You are terrified, you are exhausted, and honestly, you just want someone to fix the problem. So, you rely entirely on a medical system that holds all the cards, all the data, and all the specialized knowledge.
And that deeply vulnerable state is exactly where our deep dive today begins.
It's a heavy starting point, but a really important one.
It is. We are exploring this really striking book excerpt that was published in the AI World Journal on May 25th, 2026. The piece is from a book called How AI Changed My Life, and it's by Sydney Armani.
Such an incredible read, by the way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to look at how one patient's medical crisis and their subsequent discovery of artificial intelligence tools entirely flip the script on how we talk about technology.
Right, because the conversation usually goes in a very different direction.
Exactly. We are finally moving away from that tired, repetitive question of, will AI take my job?
Yeah.
To something much more urgent. We're asking, how can AI save human lives?
And to really understand that shift, we have to look at the baseline of Armani's experience. So back in 2023, this quiet kind of background medical concern turned into a full-blown cancer diagnosis.
Which is just, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Armani describes it as a total shift in daily reality. Suddenly, your calendar isn't filled with, meetings or social events or grocery runs.
It's just doctors.
Right. It is a relentless cycle of complex medical tests, harsh meditations, and exhausting treatments.
You are basically thrust into this world where everyone speaks a language you don't understand, all the medical jargon.
Yeah, the terminology is like a foreign language.
And Armani, like so many of us would, tried to be the good patient. Every prescription, every dosage, every clinical decision was just accepted without question.
Because that's what we're taught to do.
Exactly. We are conditioned to believe that the experts always get it right, right up until they don't. Because during this treatment journey, Armani was actually given the wrong drug.
And that single error, that is the turning point of the whole story.
Yeah, it really is.
It exposes this incredibly stark reality about modern healthcare because the side effects of this incorrect medication hit Armani so hard.
We're talking crushing weakness, right?
Crushing weakness, deep confusion, and just this physical exhaustion that went way, way beyond the expected toll of chemotherapy.
I think about it like blindly following a GPS right into a lake.
Oh, that's a really good way to put it.
Right. Because you are driving along and you can literally see the water through your windshield. You can see the pavement ending.
But the digital voice is so confident.
Exactly. The confident digital voice is telling you to just proceed straight. And we are so conditioned to believe that the system has access to a broader, more accurate map than our own senses do, that we literally ignore our own eyes.
We ignore the water.
Yeah. Armani was feeling the water seeping into the car and realized, wait, I have to grab the steering wheel. But, why is it so hard to do that in the moment? Why do patients just ignore the water?
Well, it comes down to systemic conditioning, really, and the whole authority dynamic that's just built into hospitals.
It's very intimidating.
Oh, incredibly. Self-advocacy is so difficult when you are physically weakened. You are interacting with a highly credentialed expert, wearing a lab coat, speaking in complex terminology.
They have the degree on the wall.
Right. The system essentially tells the patient, look, you don't have the medical degree to question this pain. This is just part of the process. So the default human response is to just suffer quietly, believing the system knows best.
But Armani didn't just sit there. Instead of accepting the suffering, Armani started digging.
Which took an incredible amount of energy they barely had.
Seriously. diving into the prescribed medications, the specific lab results, just desperately trying to understand what was actually happening. And that search led to this completely unexpected lifeline.
The AI boom.
Yes, the public explosion of tools like ChatGPT.
Yeah, but the mechanics of how Armani used this technology are really crucial to understand here. Armani did not use AI to self-diagnose.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because I have to push back here for a second on behalf of everyone listening.
Go for it.
Wait, isn't typing your symptoms into a computer exactly what doctors warn us not to do? I mean, we've all been there, right?
The classic midnight internet search.
Exactly. You have a slight headache, you tumble down a terrifying WebMD rabbit hole, and like 5 minutes later, you are totally convinced you have a rare, incurable disease.
We have all done it.
How is what Armani did any different from that kind of panic-inducing internet search? And beyond that, we know these AI models can hallucinate, right? They confidently invent information. Isn't relying on a chatbot for cancer treatment just incredibly dangerous?
What's fascinating here is the difference between open-ended generation and bounded translation.
Okay, what does that mean in normal terms?
So, searching the internet for a diagnosis induces panic because you are asking a search engine to basically guess a condition based on a super vague symptom, like your headache.
Right, and it naturally surfaces the worst-case scenarios for clicks.
Exactly. It shows you the scariest stuff. But Armani wasn't asking the AI to guess an illness. Armani already had the specific clinical data.
So, treating it less like a magic 8-ball and more like a calculator.
That's spot on. Armani was feeding the AI highly structured existing data. We are talking about inputting specific blood panel numbers, the exact half-lives of the prescribed drugs, and the complex doctor's notes.
Real concrete facts.
Right. Armani used the AI to map out the biological interactions of those specific inputs. It was acting as a personal translator.
Taking all that dense, exclusionary medical jargon and turning it into plain, accessible English.
Exactly. The AI wasn't creating a diagnosis out of thin air. It was just decoding the documents that were already sitting right there on Armani's kitchen table.
Oh, wow. That makes a lot of sense. It takes the terrifying unknown and basically organizes it into facts you can actually process.
Yeah, it grounds everything.
So Armani was feeding in the exact dosage of the chemotherapy alongside the new medication and asking the AI to cross-reference their interactions based on established medical literature.
And that bounded prompting creates empowerment, not panic. It gave Armani the actual vocabulary needed to challenge the authority dynamic we talked about earlier.
Because now they could speak the language.
Exactly. Armed with this simplified, organized translation, Armani went back to the medical team and could clearly point out, based on their own data, that the drug was causing an adverse reaction.
And it worked. I mean, they addressed the error, the treatment was changed, and Armani's body actually began to respond properly to the real therapy.
It completely changed the trajectory of the treatment.
It led to a successful recovery. And today, Armani is cancer-free. All because the technology provided the language to push back.
It is just a remarkable turnaround. But of course, once you establish that an artificial intelligence can translate lab results and successfully flag an adverse drug reaction that human doctors entirely missed.
People start to panic about jobs.
Right. It triggers this immediate societal anxiety. People hear this story and wonder, does this mean doctors and nurses are becoming obsolete?
And Armani is incredibly clear about this in the book. The answer is a hard no.
Absolutely not.
Doctors, nurses, caregivers, they are irreplaceable. A machine cannot hold your hand before a scary procedure.
No, it can't.
A machine cannot look into your eyes and offer the nuanced comfort of human empathy when you're terrified.
Technology alone cannot replicate the human experience that is honestly required in healing. But Armani envisions AI as the ultimate support system.
Right. Not replacing, but supporting.
Exactly. It isn't about replacing the human interaction. It is about augmenting it and fundamentally shifting the power dynamic of modern healthcare.
Okay, let's unpack this because I want to give you an analogy to think about. Think of AI as your ultimate prep coach for that incredibly short, intimidating 15-minute doctor's appointment.
Oh, the 15-minute scramble.
We know the drill, right? You sit in the waiting room for an hour, then you're sitting on that crinkly paper on the exam table wearing a freezing backless gown.
Staring at the wall.
Yeah. The doctor finally rushes in, fires off 3 multi-syllable Latin words, asks if you have questions, and you just nod blankly because you are totally overwhelmed.
And why is that appointment only 15 minutes? Because the system is massively overloaded.
Right. They just don't have the time.
Doctors are completely overwhelmed with administrative tasks and crazy patient loads. They honestly don't have the time to sit for an hour and teach you the underlying biology of your condition.
So with AI as your prep coach, you translate your charts before you ever step foot in that freezing room.
You do your homework with the AI.
Exactly. You identify the anomalies in your blood work on your own time. So instead of nodding blankly, you walk in with targeted, highly informed questions. You basically transform from a passenger into a co-pilot.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it changes the entire model of healthcare. From a passive patient just receiving orders to an active, informed participant.
And that changes everything.
It really does. Armani details how this support system extends beyond the clinic, too. It's about helping track daily symptoms to identify early warning signs or creating tailored lifestyle and nutrition plans to keep patients actively engaged in their own recovery.
But Armani's vision doesn't just stop at recovering from an illness or managing an ongoing one. It looks at how this tech can actually prevent that terrifying room entirely.
This is the really mind-blowing part.
Yeah, Armani predicts a future where AI helps detect diseases like cancer at what is called stage 0.
Stage 0 is a concept that just pushes the boundaries of how we think about medicine.
Because right now, we wait for symptoms.
Currently, we largely practice reactive medicine, yeah. We wait for a symptom like a lump or a pain, and then we treat it. Stage 0 is about predictive diagnostics.
Getting ahead of it.
Right. AI algorithms can actually work alongside radiologists to catch microscopic anomalies literally years before any physical symptoms ever manifest.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate for the listener here. If AI is catching microscopic anomalies years in advance, doesn't that risk massive overdiagnosis?
That's a huge debate right now.
Right. Like, are we going to be putting people through terrifying, invasive, preemptive treatments for tiny anomalies that might never have actually harmed them?
That is a very real concern in the medical community, and it is exactly why the distinction between a simple anomaly and a predictive pathway is so important.
Okay, explain that difference.
The AI isn't just looking at a scan and saying, hey, here's a weird spot. It is analyzing pixel-level density changes in MRIs.
Wow, pixel level.
Yeah, and then combining that with a patient's genetic data and mapping it against millions of other patient histories to predict whether that specific microscopic spot has the biological mechanism to actually become aggressive.
So it's looking at the history and the future at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is seeing patterns and trajectories that the human eye simply cannot process.
So it's not just spotting a bump in the road. It's basically calculating the speed, trajectory, and likelihood of a crash long before it happens.
That's a great way to summarize it.
And this isn't just theory, right? Armani highlights specific companies that are actively building this reality in precision medicine right now.
They are doing incredible work.
But let's actually explain what they're doing rather than just listing names. Take open evidence, for instance.
Open evidence is fascinating because it tackles the sheer information overload in medicine.
There's just too much to read.
Exactly. Medical literature doubles every few months. No human doctor can read every new clinical trial. It's literally impossible. So open evidence acts as a real-time aggregator. It instantly analyzes the latest peer-reviewed medical literature so a doctor can ask a complex question and get an answer backed by the absolute newest research.
That's incredible. Then you have a company like Chai Discovery. They aren't just looking at old charts. They're actually using AI to predict molecular structures.
It's like playing biological Tetris.
Exactly. They are simulating how different biological molecules will fold and interact, which fundamentally speeds up the discovery of entirely new drugs.
Doing in hours what used to take years.
Yes. They are doing it in a computer in hours, what used to take years in a physical lab.
And finally, Armani talks about Natera, which focuses on cell-free DNA testing.
This one sounds like science fiction.
It really does. This is technology that looks for microscopic fragments of tumor DNA just floating in the bloodstream.
Like leaving a footprint.
Right. It allows for the detection of cancer recurrences long before a tumor is large enough to show up on a traditional scan.
So if the first part of Armani's story was about realizing the GPS was driving you into a lake, yeah, this stage 0 technology is about the AI analyzing the road conditions 100 miles ahead so you never even get near the water.
Precisely. And realizing the power of this technology completely altered Armani's life trajectory. Surviving cancer forged a totally new global mission.
Armani took all that fear, all that vulnerability, and turned it into action. Armani founded the AI World Media Group.
Which is doing amazing work.
It is. It includes platforms like the AI World Journal, 101 AI World, and the Rex AI Agent. And the goal here is brilliant.
Because it's not for the elite.
Right. It isn't to talk to Silicon Valley engineers or high-level developers. It is to educate ordinary people, teachers, parents, small business owners.
People who just want to understand how to use this stuff.
Exactly. People who want to know how to use this technology to improve their daily lives.
It evolved from a personal, desperate search for answers in the middle of the night into a global mission to demystify technology.
And now Armani travels and speaks at conferences all over the world.
Standing on stage, not just as a tech founder, but as someone who survived cancer by leveraging these exact tools.
So what does this all mean? Well, Armani points out this incredible irony about those public speaking events.
The Q&A sessions, right?
Yeah. During the Q&A sessions, inevitably, the very first question from the audience is always, is AI going to take over our jobs?
Every single time.
Every time. And there is Armani, a living, breathing testament to survival, looking out at the crowd, answering that while the economy will definitely shift, the true purpose of this technology, like its highest calling, is human empowerment and saving lives.
This raises an important question about how we fundamentally view innovation.
How so?
The philosophical takeaway from Armani's journey is that technology is not inherently cold or distant. We often project our own anxieties onto it.
We definitely do.
But when placed in the hands of everyday people and combined with human compassion, it actually brings hope to the darkest places. Armani proved that knowledge itself, when made accessible, is powerful medicine.
Armani's upcoming book, How AI Changed My Life, serves as a complete testament to that idea.
Highly recommend everyone checks it out.
For sure. It takes you through the entire journey, from the extreme vulnerability of a medical crisis and a systemic error, to discovering the tools to translate the jargon and ultimately finding a second chance at life.
It's a very powerful narrative.
It's a story about proving that even when you feel entirely powerless, you can still grab the wheel.
It is a reminder that we really cannot let the fear of the unknown blind us to the tools that can actually help us.
Yeah.
AI leveled the playing field for Armani. It took a massive, intimidating, walled-off system and made it legible for a highly vulnerable person.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over today.
The big takeaway.
In this deep dive, we saw how AI can act as a personal translator to empower a patient navigating the labyrinth of modern healthcare. But think about your own life.
Outside the hospital.
Right. We spend so much time worrying about the dystopian elements of technology, but what other intimidating walled-off institutions do you interact with that AI could help you conquer next?
It is such an empowering way to look at it.
It really is.
Whether it is the legal system with its endless contracts, complex tax and financial institutions, or even just the bureaucratic maze of your local government.
All those systems rely on dense jargon to maintain their authority.
Exactly.
Knowledge is only powerful when it is understood. If Armani can use an AI translator to survive a medical nightmare, how could you use it to translate the complex systems in your own life?
How could it change your daily struggles?
Right. How could it turn you from a passive participant into an empowered advocate? The next time you find yourself blindly following the GPS into a lake, whether it's a doctor, a lawyer, or a mechanic telling you to just trust them, remember Sydney Armani's story.
Grab the wheel.
Exactly. You don't have to just sit there and let the water rush in. You have the tools to read the map for yourself, grab the steering wheel, and find your own way forward.